Hi guys, it's World Book Day week, and to celebrate, I thought I would do a reading from one of my books each day this week. So you'll be able to find them all on my Instagram account, on my webpage, which is www.mattbeaton.co.uk. And as always, if you enjoy what you hear and you want to find out more, you can head to my webpage, or you can find all of my books on all good online retailers, or you can go into your local bookstores and ask them, and they will be able to order them through. Right, so today's Friday. It's the last day of World Book Day week. World Book Day was actually yesterday, but I'm still in a bit of a treatsy mood, so I'm going to give you another sample from a different work in progress. This one is not the same book as yesterday. This one is a kind of younger readers slash early mid grade, so 9, 10 years old, 11-year old readers, World War II historical fiction. So this one at the minute has got the working title of Evacuated, and it's going to tell the story of a boy who is evacuated from London out to the small village of St. Mawes in Cornwall, where he goes on an adventure to find some hidden treasure. He's going to end up interacting with another child who's been sent over on the Kindertransport from Germany just before the war, who will, at the minute in my head, he's been sent over on the Kindertransport to live with family in London. They've then been bombed as part of the Blitz, and he has been forced himself to be evacuated. So I want to kind of explore that idea of these two children being evacuated from very different worlds, very different backgrounds, but all going through the same kind of thing, same kind of situation. So this one is about 2/3 written, the story at the moment. This is my current work in progress. The one I read yesterday is on the back burner. I'm leaving that one for a little bit, and I'll go back to it in a month or so. But for now, this one is the one that I'm currently writing. I'm going to read you chapter 1. Sirens split the air, and howling demons flew through the night sky. Outside in the street, people screamed and shouted, begging their families to move indoors. The small boy sat at his window and stared at the nightmare unfolding. Bodies were lying in the street, motionless. It wasn't easy to watch, but the boy found his gaze pinned to the carnage. As per the rules, all of the windows were covered in old newspaper and tape. They'd been told it stopped the Nazi pilots seeing the lights inside your house, but he also knew the other reason. If a bomb went off, hopefully you'd be spared the shards of broken glass. The boy felt his fingers pulling on the corner of the paper, peeling it back further for a better look. Orange and red blossomed like summer flowers. As he watched, they spread and erupted in choking black smoke. Through the gap, he watched lights streaming through the sky, an endless barrage of banshees dropping death onto the city. The buzz of engines and the whistle of the bombs in constant battle with the sounds of the dying. In the distance, the fire was spreading. His gut told him it was only a matter of time before his house was hit. Each time a bomb landed in an adjacent street, the walls would shake and he would hold his breath. He'd wait for the world to crumble around him. In his head, he could see the rubble closing in like a coffin, trapping him forever. Josh! With a jolt, the boy was startled out of his flashback, not for the first time, and stared out of the window, smudged with fingerprints, at his mother. Josh! With a jolt, the boy was startled out of his flashback, not for the first time, and stared out of the window, smudged with fingerprints, at his mother. She was standing on the station platform, shouting his name and waving with one hand. The other was dabbing at her cheeks with a handkerchief. He sighed and waved back. He tried his best to force the memories from his mind. The whistle of a steam engine drowned out the cacophony of sobbed farewells on the platform. He pulled the hood of his coat over his ears, but it didn't muffle the sound. He'd never been on a train before. He hadn't been sure what to expect. It had been his 10th birthday the month before, and he'd asked for a wooden train set. He hadn't got one. Unlike most of the other children, he'd already boarded. He'd been determined to get a seat to himself. It hadn't mattered, really. The carriage was empty. Out on the platform, a dozen children of varying ages were saying goodbye, but most of the others were heading with their parents towards the carriages further down the line. Only his own mother was stood nearby, still waving and crying. Josh didn't know how to react to his mother crying. Ever since he'd been little, his mother had been more stoic than loving. She'd always been there with food and a present on his birthday, but she'd never showered him with emotion. His father had always been the more emotional one. Every night he'd hug Josh and give him a big kiss on the forehead. He'd tell him he loved him, and Josh would always reply with a smile, "Of course you do, I'm amazing," he'd say, and his father would laugh and kiss him again. He'd missed that a lot lately. His mother had been even more distant. Ever since she'd received the letter a month before, she'd retreated even further. She'd been less patient and quicker to anger. She'd shout at him over silly things like spilling a glass of water. "One day you'll have to be the man of this house," she'd shout through her tears. Josh couldn't really remember a time when she'd been like the other mothers. His friend Tom's mother was always chasing him around with jam sandwiches and kisses. Josh pulled his hood back and gave a last wave to his mother. The engine had staggered to life, and he could feel it beneath his seat, building up like an athlete on the blocks. He'd always loved the smell of the coal and smuts drifting across the field behind his house on the outskirts of London. He'd grown up with it, as familiar to him as the smell of roast chicken or cut grass. Now it seemed to be filled with uncertainty. With a jolt, the train crept into motion. Josh looked down at the large bag next to him. The canvas wriggled a bit. He gently placed his hand on it. He couldn't get caught. That had been one of his conditions when he'd made the deal with his mother. After the bombings a few days before, his mother had made up her mind. She'd been considering evacuating Josh ever since they'd started sending children out of London over a year ago. Until now, they'd managed to avoid the worst of the bombings. Josh would sit at his window every night and watch through the peeled-back paper as London erupted into flames. It had seemed to get closer each night, but neither of them had ever believed it would reach them. And then, suddenly, it had. Their house hadn't been damaged too badly. There were a few pock marks on the walls, and the chimney pot had dropped into the outhouse, but that was it. The next road over was a different story. When he'd heard the knock at the door the next morning, Josh had leapt from the breakfast table and scrambled for the door the same way he did every day. This time, it hadn't been the welcoming face of Mr. Mayhew, the village postman. This time it was the warden. Okay, thank you for listening again, and thank you if you followed all week. If you want to go back and listen to any of the other recordings, you can find them all on my Instagram and probably on my Facebook and Twitter by this point. As always, if you'd like to buy any of my books or find out more information, you can go to my webpage at www.mattbeaton.co.uk, or you can buy the books from Amazon or good online retailers. Go into your local bookstores, ask them, they will order them. Thank you very much.